Global Rescue, it is Boston-based and an extra lifeline for athletes at the Winter Olympics. The private security firm is contracted to help keep certain U.S. teams safe. But in the wake of those recent threats revealed in Sochi, should you be asking for it too? Earlier, we spoke to Dan Richards. He's the CEO and founder of Global Rescue. So your organization is partnering with the U.S. Ski and Snowboarding Association. You've done that before, but let's talk about the sort of support that you'll provide: medical, evacuation, security, and even more. How does that work?
The Global Rescue provides medical, security, evacuation, crisis management response services. We've done so for the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Association and for the elite teams, the skiers and the snowboarders who've been competing in World Cups around the world, and for them when they've competed in the Olympics. And the planning for this Olympics has been different because obviously the environment in Sochi is a little bit more challenging than one would encounter in a typical World Cup event or in Olympic Games of years past.
Let's get into that just a little bit more right off the bat then. So when it comes to the type of support that you're providing, paint a picture for us. Are we talking people are dropping in off of helicopters and saving someone with a broken leg, or fighting terrorists here? What do we mean?
Well, Global Rescue really is here in Sochi to provide oversight for injured athletes, staff, or coaches, or spectators who have either a medical problem or if there is a security event that requires an evacuation or a movement of people from one place to another. We're not jumping out of helicopters. We're not going to be fighting terrorists, but what we are going to be doing is providing logistical support, medical support, and ultimately evacuation and transport out of the country if that's what's required.
So you have men and women who will be there on the ground and helping. You said that this was different, though, than events past. How so when you think about the political climate and the security risks that are specific to Sochi?
Well, the Sochi environment is really unique because on the one hand, you've got the Black Sea geographically to the west and southwest. You've got Georgia to the southeast, and you've got a ring of mountains that separates Sochi from Dagestan and Chechnya, which are a few hundred miles from that location. And so what you end up with is a scenario where you have some individuals who are bent on disrupting the games. There have not been threats like those that have been made to these games, to games past. And obviously the preparation by the Russians and others to try and make sure that the games are safe are unprecedented also in the history of the Olympic Games.
So when you think about the other teams and the other athletes, why only the group that you're working with? What about everybody else? Do you feel like they are at risk and they should also be engaging in kind of private security backup?
Well, you'd have to ask them, obviously, why they're doing what they're doing, and if they're engaged with someone else or not. That's really a call that only they can make. But, we're going to be there to provide the services that we think that our athletes, coaches, spectators, and staff might need if and when they need it. And it's not just in Sochi. It's also from the point that they might have either been injured or taken ill or been involved in an event all the way back home.
So this is beyond the services that are provided by the Olympics itself. I think a lot of people would be surprised that that's even necessary. How would you explain the need for something like this? And should other sports be considering this as well, not just, Olympic athletes?
Well, we think that preparation is an incredibly important part of entering an environment like Sochi. And USSA obviously has some fairly specific needs. Their athletes compete in high-speed events around the world. They train in South America, for instance, in the summertime, and they have injuries that sometimes need immediate attention. Some of those injuries can be quite serious. So we've been there to support them over the years. Sochi obviously is a unique environment, and any team I think that's entering that environment should be prepared, just as any spectator should.
And when you think about that environment and compare it back here to the United States, there's talk of Olympics coming to Boston. What's your take on that? Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I think it would be wonderful for Boston to host an Olympic Games, should we be so fortunate enough to receive the nomination to do it.
And as far as the risk and everything, you'd be confident that there could be support provided?
Well, I think that the environment in Boston is a little bit different than the environment in Sochi. And
sure.
I think that the ability to control what's going on in that environment is substantially enhanced by having it in a place like the United States, and specifically in Boston. In Boston, you don't have states that are populated by individuals who would be bent on disrupting a games in Boston.
Yeah, definitely an entirely different scene. So Dan Richards, thank you so much for weighing in.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
A different scene and always some concerns, though, when it comes to security. Individuals going to watch the Olympics can actually buy security packages as well. So, for example, if you were to get hurt overseas, you'd have their resources on top of all the typical emergency responders. So, Mark, Maria, definitely a sign of the times that we're thinking about this, for sure.
Yes, it is. Indeed.
Yep.